Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I am so excited to bring our guest to you today. 3 things you will learn from this episode are some simple mistakes that you could make on a resume that will prevent it from ever seeing the light of day. Number 2, why leveraging AI can be a game changer in your job search. And number 3, how Intry's full frontal approach to the job search is disrupting the outplacement services game. Jennifer Sethre is the CEO and founder of Intry, a technology-driven matchmaking service connecting job seekers with employers. Intry was showcased at the White House in 2018 as a company to watch, and Jennifer has participated in prestigious events such as the Yale CEO Summit and Yale CEO College at the New York Stock Exchange. Throughout her career, she has held leadership roles as president, CEO, and vice president across various tech and consumer product companies. She is a true visionary, and she and her team were the creators of the pre-lit Christmas tree. You heard that right. She has multiple patents in her name and has worked with companies in over 18 countries, giving her a truly global perspective. Her insights and success stories have been featured on major media outlets, including CNBC, NBC, and Yahoo Finance, and she thrives on solving complex challenges, but is most proud of her ability to merge technology with humanity. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Wow, I feel so important right now.
You
It's
are.
when you hear somebody read back the things that you've done, you kind of forget
Yes.
some of the things that you've done. So thank you. That was really well done and researched. So I
Well,
really appreciate
I
it.
mean, you've done it all yourself, so it's just fun, my honor to get to share your story. Speaking of, the way I start every episode on this podcast is by asking the question, will you share some of your story? I mean, I gave a little tease, but maybe you could dig in a little more.
How far back do you want to go? No, I'm just, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. We don't have that much time. My story is, I think I'd always wanted to do something bigger and better and helping people. I mean, just from a young age, right? It's always been sort of in my genetic code in problem solving. Uh, I mean, I literally can't think, and I was like playing Barbies. My Barbies were president and congresswomen and presidents and CEOs. So when maybe, that wasn't like a big part of that conversation. And so, the generation of my story is, having really amazing parents that told me that I could do whatever I wanted to do. I just I had to work hard at it. Nothing was going to be a gimme. And, my dad used to say something like, the hardest working people that he knows, or the luckiest people that he knew were the hardest working people that he
Mm.
knew. And so sometimes luck is luck, and sometimes luck is the luck you create.
Well,
And
you
so
you started working early, and you talk a little bit about that because I
for
know
a
that's
ridiculous
your background.
reason,
Yeah.
I can't believe you're making me tell this story. Okay, so when I was 14, we were on a family trip visiting relatives, and we went into the store, and there was this leather jacket, which as I look back on it now was egregiously ugly. Um, but I wanted it so bad. And my mom and dad were like, listen, it's not in the budget. We can't afford it. And I was like, okay, I'll get a job. I'll get a job when we get home, and I will pay you back in a month. And at the time, it was like $99, which was really huge. That was
A
huge
lot of
money.
money then.
So I went back, and I was like, God, oh my God, where am I going to get a job? And I found a job at this sort of senior living facility in the restaurant. I got fired actually, because I was too casual. I got to know the residents too well, and they wanted it to be a little bit more refined. But I got a job working on the weekends as a receptionist. And turns out I was kind of good in sales, and I leased as many apartment units on the weekend that they did during the week. And when I got my first paycheck, I gave it to my parents. And I mean, I had no checking account. I didn't know what to do with it. And I did. I paid them back in the first month. And that first check in my name with my own money, nobody telling me what I could do with it, was freedom.
Yeah.
Was absolute freedom. And it wasn't that, my parents were trying to, contain me, but, they were trying to teach me about responsibility, and money doesn't grow on trees. And if you want something, you have to work for it. And that's where it started for me. And it's never stopped.
And am I right in saying you graduated school pretty early?
Well, I went what they called at the time post-secondary. So my junior year, I went to a community college because I was kind of over being in high school. I wanted to be an adult. And then I went to the University of Minnesota. And then, I got my first job I worked in a radio station, and then a marketing manager for a group of restaurants and nightclubs. And then that led to, I've sold television advertising and all sorts of things, and was a VP at, I think, maybe 24.
Really
And
young.
not like a VP at IBM. I mean, like,
It's okay.
let's
That's
temper
still
that a
that's
little
still a
bit.
big
But
title for that age. So that's not
yeah,
that common.
it was not common, but I will say I have been uncommonly lucky with mentors, and with people who were willing to take a chance on me, and they saw how hard I was willing to work and how hard I was willing to put the time in, and that I listened,
Mhm.
and I was willing to take constructive criticism and learn from my mistakes. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes I remember is there was a gentleman named Jack Chelfin. He owned a jewelry store. And when you book television advertising, you book it in flights. And I had done it incorrectly. And I went to my dad and I was like, oh my God, how do I even tell this to my boss? I completely foobarred this. And he's like, you need to be honest and you need to own your mistake.
Mhm.
So I told my boss, and he was like, okay, here's what we can do to fix it. And then I went to Jack and his jewelry store, and I was like, here's what I've done. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. I'm sincerely sorry. And then I said, because I didn't know any better, I said, I'm also going to add whatever commission I was going to make from this, and I'm going to add it into your flight rotation. And he didn't accept it, but he was my customer for as long as I was selling television advertising, because I was willing to sort of lean into the mistake that I made.
Yeah, I love that. So let's pivot a little bit and
Yes.
I mean, you've done all these different companies in CPG and manufacturing and
Yeah.
technology, but I want to talk a little bit about Intry because this is
Yes.
a really sweet spot. Also, one I'm a little connected to. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk a little bit about what was the point of Intry and how did you come about wanting to go down that path?
Well, I mean, after starting and selling two companies, I was like, I'm never going to start another company again.
And
I
here
was
we
like, I'm not doing it. And then someone who was very close to me came to me with a resume, and they couldn't get hired. And I was like, well, let me see your resume. I was like, huh, this is actually pretty great. And so I really couldn't figure out anything that could make it better. And so I said, well, I'm going to make a resume. I did my own. It was terrible. I hired a professional resume writer. It was beautiful. They asked me so many questions, and of really things that I had done, but they weren't on my resume. Like, I was part of the team that created the first pre-lit Christmas tree. I was president of this company, and it was game changing for the industry,
Mhm.
and wasn't on my resume. It's kind of a miss, right?
Big miss.
And
Yeah.
so we did it, and I sent it out to like 37 different jobs that I was super qualified for. Crickets, literally crickets. Not, no, thank you, we're not interested. Not, you have too much experience. Not anything. And then I was working with a consulting firm. They all sent their resumes out to sort of beta test it, 250 in all. Out of all of those, and the metrics were you had to have a minimum of 85% of the requirements.
Sure.
Got one no thank you and one request for an informational interview.
It's great.
And that was significant. And so, having come off just building a different technology platform, I was like, this isn't an HR thing. This isn't a hiring manager thing. This isn't a recruiter thing. This is a technology thing. And so as I was doing consulting and other fractional stuff, I really kind of I dove into Intry and started really peeling it back. And then I thought, this is a problem that needs to be solved. It's
Mm.
able to be monetized, because as anybody who starts a business knows, is there a problem that you can solve? Is there a way that you can monetize it?
Yep.
And is it replicable? Right. So Intry checked all of those boxes. And so raised a little money, developed a team, we reverse engineered a couple hundred applicant tracking system software and discovered 127 different reasons why resumes weren't getting through. Some of them was technical bias, sometimes that you just get when you use AI or
Sure.
machine learning, maybe not in the best way. And then others were bias in technical mistakes, like you used the wrong font or you had too many words on your page. And then there were more that were less great. Maybe your name didn't sound Caucasian enough, or you lived in the wrong zip code, or you didn't go to a certain university, or you didn't use the same job description words in your resume that they did. And so you would get filtered and ranked in the same way. And then we developed a couple, I don't know, 3 or 4 patents around it. And it was game changing. I
Yeah.
mean, it really has been.
I've been absolutely stunned by the amount of teeny tiny things that could really make your resume just never see human eyes. And
Right.
I just some of them are kind of funny. Like putting an area code or a parentheses around your area code that makes you old. I didn't know that. I'm a freaking fossil.
Yeah, but
But
it's an
other,
evolution. It
yeah,
wasn't like that wasn't a thing 5 years ago, but it is today. So like
correct.
we're constantly iterating and changing it as well to make sure that we're current with all the change.
And I love that. And so how we met was kind of cool because what happened in July was you had this vision, as you tend to do, to build this job seeker. We at the time we were calling it a boot camp. Now we call it a career
Yeah.
accelerator. And so we did this 2-day boot camp, and this was this full frontal approach on let's give job seekers everything they need
Everything they need. A total
to
360.
go and crush their next career transition, their next job, whatever. And you pulled together this roster of phenomenal coaches who have really nice LinkedIn voices. And we did our first boot camp, and the results were amazing. Um,
Yeah.
and then between July and September, you started getting calls from all these
Yes.
companies that
Uh-huh.
were like, what you did, I want that for my outplacement services. Can you just talk a little bit about what outplacement services are and what these companies were saying to you?
Well, I mean, honestly, the first LinkedIn introduction I got, I thought it was a joke because we've done no advertising, no
Right.
marketing about anything as like an outplacement alternative. And so, we knew the event was sort of this transformational experience. It was for us as coaches and mentors, as it was for the people who were participating in it. But the evolution of what happened was that, people were reaching out and they're like, listen, not everybody wants to take a month or 3 months or 6 months to get all of the tools that they need in their briefcase to get a job that they want in today's sort of fast-paced market, right? You have between 200 and 1,000 people applying for every job that's posted, right? I mean, it's insane. And and how are the hiring managers and the recruiters supposed to keep up with that, right? I mean, it's incredibly challenging to manage that. But what they wanted to do was there are two parts of it. One, they wanted to bring us in early when they were going to consider a reduction in force so that they could empower the people in their organization to get ahead of it while they were still being paid. And I thought that was an amazing idea because it helps their brand. It helps the people feel included and and they're taking ownership of what's going on within their organization, which I think shows an exemplary leadership style, in my humble opinion, right?
I couldn't agree more.
Then
I think the companies that have reached out to say, I'm really sad I have to be laying my executives off or my people off. And I want to think of a way to arm them so they can go out into the world. First of all, it's saying that you have a soul. When you have to lay people off, it's a pretty
yeah,
awful experience. I've done it, it sucks.
yeah,
And
it's
when you can
horrible.
say, hey, this is coming, it's not something I ever wanted to do, it's not something that, um, we're taking any delight in, but we really care about you and we want you to have the best. When you can say it that way, first of all, that preserves your brand view. It keeps some loyalty. And I think when I think of some CEOs who did this kind of thing right, I think of the ones from Stripe, the two brothers who were like,
Right,
we
right.
over
Such a great story.
rotated,
Yeah,
we hired too many people, and there's no one to blame but us. And you always have a home here. We always take care of our stripers, but we screwed up. Nobody else. And when you can take that kind of ownership, much like you did in your ad sales role, and still provide for the people that have been running your company, that's not a bad look.
right. Well, I mean, like leadership starts from the top.
Always.
Right. And I mean, like, listen, there's certainly been many mistakes that I have made in my career, right?
All of us have, of
As
course.
as all of us have. I think the difference is the being able to acknowledge when it is that you have made a mistake.
Mhm.
And also the in that same vein, you don't take credit for the mistakes that aren't yours,
Sure.
which I think a lot of particularly women in leadership tend to do,
Hmm.
right? But the other thing, I just wanted to circle back. There were the two OA opportunities, right? One was the group that was like, hey, we want to get ahead of the reduction in force.
That's right.
Then there were other really big companies who wanted to look at outplacement through a different kaleidoscope because what they had been doing hadn't been working. And so what we built in our accelerator, we're no boot camp now, it's the accelerator, is you said something in the intro that's really true is, we're taking the best of technology and the best of humanity and we're
Right.
merging them together
Yeah.
so that people can do more in less time and get the tools that they need so they can understand what's your unique value proposition. I didn't even know what that was, 2 years
Yeah.
ago. How you build, an ATS resume. Okay, got that part, right? But also bringing some resume writers in who can drill down on people's really complex stories. Because the further you get in your path, sometimes the more complex your story becomes. And you
Right.
have to use the UVP to drill down that story, right? All of that. And so I think these companies saw it. And three of the companies that reached out were on several of our LinkedIn lives.
That's right. And I
And
think it's important to note too, these companies are recognizable brands that you've all heard of,
right,
probably all products that you've used,
right,
or services that you've used. So these were not small companies. And so this
right.
is where you and I connected. I mean, we were already connected from July. And for those that have been tuning into this podcast for any length of time, maybe this is new news to you. But Jen, after being approached by all of these companies, she looked at me and she said, girlfriend, this is getting crazy. Like there's a lot of people coming our way. I need to expand on this idea. And I was kind of itchy and looking for a little more steady revenue. Keynotes are great, and it's just a bit of a roller coaster. I wanted it a little more steady. And she said, I can't believe you said that. And she offered me the role of chief revenue officer. So
I
now
know.
we are thick as thieves working together on this, and we have since identified 9 revenue streams for this incredible technology. So,
And by the way, like I couldn't be more thrilled. I felt like when the people said that, he said yes or she said yes. I was like, she said yes. This is amazing because, it's one thing to be, the CEO and you have a team, but you really have to have the right people in place to
right,
scale it and to have the vision and to be able to ebb and flow and we're not today going to be the person that's going to take on, a company that's going to have a 50,000
yeah,
reduction in force. But we are the company that can take on, 1,000 or 500 or, 2,500 or, like we can do that. We can,
yeah,
we can manage that. Um, and so, we've created this sort of boutique alternative that's been sort of game changing for the people that have gone through it because you
yeah,
don't know what you don't know. And I think, with Intry as the evolution has happened, right? We started out in the B2C space. And then, that grew into a B2B space. And now, the B2B space is surpassing the B2C business. And as you mentioned, it's created a myriad of
Right.
amazing revenue streams. And on top of that, we've acquired another company that we're integrating into the solutions that we've built, technically. And so it levels us up at the
Yeah.
same time.
So
And
that's
I
a
think that's
perfect,
really
oh, go ahead.
important.
That's a perfect segue into the comment about AI. And so you used AI to build out your resume solution. But let's talk a little bit about how we're going to be leveraging AI with our solutions now, because um, while there is this absolute human element to what we're doing, and that's what makes us really special, let's talk a little bit about how we've leveraged AI and what we're going to be sharing with the masses.
Okay, well, first, I mean, some of it we can't get super detailed about,
I know, but some
but
of it we can tell.
I did also want to make something that I think is a super important comment that, at Intry, we don't sell your information,
No.
right? We don't repurpose it. We're using contextual AI, which is different than patterned AI, which just sort of replicates. Contextual AI learns and it infers.
Mhm.
And that's really important because right now AI is kind of the wild, wild west.
Right.
And there aren't a lot of guardrails on it about how it's being used. And, when you're getting people's information from resumes and profile, they're sharing a lot of really personal information. And so that's really important to us that we manage that and that we respect that.
Mhm.
That being said, we are using it to take the best part of building resumes and your UVP and being able to do interviews, live interviews, and where you are going to get feedback and where we are going to be able to take your unique value proposition, connect it with your resume, connect it with your LinkedIn, connect it with the different jobs that you are going to be applying to, and merge them all together so you have a 360 version of yourself.
Right.
And building it out in a platform where anything that is contained with a job search, but particularly aimed at people who are in the resume and career coaching and outplacement,
Yeah.
or companies who want to use outplacement, because we saw that you can't do one without the other. You can't just have a great platform because you have to have the human element. You have to
Right.
have that person that's going to pull that information out of you so that, you get the little isms and you get the little nuggets. When we've had people that have gone through our accelerator, we've had a couple people who, were like, well, I'm kind of, and I kind of want to do this. And as we were building out their LinkedIn, you were building out what they want to say. And I was like, oh, oh my God, I get it. I totally get it. Right. So I wrote it down and I put it back in and I was like, is this what you're thinking? And they were like, yeah. And it was like, they will not be named here, but someone who is very experienced executive wanted to take all that experience and transition into being a CEO.
Yeah.
So how do you say you want to be a CEO without saying it?
Yes. Well, and that was a
And
challenge. And this is where uh our accelerator gets so interesting, because if you have someone who currently has a job but
right,
wants to transition into something else, you have to handle that very delicately. And you
right,
can't just put it out on blast, hey, I'm looking, like that. You'd be shooting yourself in the foot. So you have
right,
to be very thoughtful with the words that you use, the posts that you make, the things that you say. And we spent a lot of time working with that potential CEO in making sure he could articulate his value well, and it could be easily seen through his profile. So
right.
I
Yeah.
love that we did that. And for anybody curious about the components of what's in the outplacement alternative or the career accelerator, so you heard Jen talk about your unique value prop. So how do you tell your story? That is critical. That is a life skill that everyone needs to learn. You obviously get your ATS ready resumes.
Succinctly.
Yeah, yeah. You get an optimized LinkedIn profile with a graphic design banner. in a curated headline. You get interviewing tips and techniques. You get to talk with recruiters. You get salary negotiation. And I think the thing that we didn't realize was going to be the most, not the most, but one of the most impactful pieces was this whole portion on mental health. And job seeking is hard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially if
So
you've lost your job, you need somebody to give you some tools to set expectations for your partner, your families, your friends, and anybody who's like, you lost your job, huh? Like everyone feels that pressure who's in that spot. So giving you tools to handle that is so important. And what's so fascinating is all of those big companies that reached out to us, that was the piece they wanted first. They all
right.
recognized the value of it. And I thought it was so interesting when we did our first accelerator, everyone was like, yeah, that's nice. Like they didn't
Yeah.
really
I don't need it. I
see
don't need
what
it.
it, and by the time they were in it, there was tears, there was epiphanies, there was like all of these beautiful moments. And they said that was so valuable to them. And I just love that we're hitting on that piece. I think it's so, so important. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's pivot a little bit. What inspires you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, I'm inspired by people every day. And it's not just like the big stories on the news, right? Sometimes it's just the little things. You see an exchange, of kindness between people that really inspires me. I
Same.
think um when people act with purpose, even when you see people who have been knocked down and they rise above, that inspires me. I mean, you inspire me, and those of you who know me know I can't pander. I cannot. I can't do it. But so, I'm inspired by you because you see the opportunity. Like, listen, I'm not for everybody, right? I'm intense, I'm a visionary, I move really fast, and we want to scale things quickly, and you do that and you see that, and that is a gift, right? And as someone who is, running a company and things like that, it can be lonely at the top, right? It
Yeah.
can be lonely when you're building things out and you're in beta mode, and you have people who see it and you have people who don't see it or they don't
Mhm.
understand it because they've never done it before. And I think to have someone on the journey who has, worked for really big companies,
Mhm.
but has also been an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
You've seen the best, you've seen the worst, you
Yep.
see, how hard it is. And I think, that inspires me. The when I see people who are struggling with health issues, and they keep going and they
Mhm.
keep persevering. I think I admire courage. I admire determination.
Mhm.
I admire kindness,
Mhm.
right? I admire people who show respect for each other.
Yep.
I mean, we're in a really divisive election right now, right?
Yeah.
But what I respect is people who can have two opposing views and discuss it in such a kind and respectful way,
Yeah.
and then they can agree to disagree. I
And we've
I
lost that a
admire
little
that.
bit. We've lost that a little bit in this country. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping we can get back there. But Jen, what
And
would
my
you like?
parents, I
Yeah.
can't leave them out. They both passed,
Yeah.
but they are like still my North Star.
Yeah.
When I think of all the challenges that my dad had with pancreatic cancer and all of that, I think, you know what, it could be worse. And I feel grateful,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
you had great
that's,
relationships with them both. And you're super fortunate to have that.
yeah. And I
Um,
don't think I knew that
yeah.
always.
Yeah. What would you like your legacy to be?
Oh my gosh. Okay. What do I want my legacy to be? I think that I was a great partner, a great wife, a great mother, that I left something behind that changed people's lives. And, at the end of the day, that I was a good and nice and kind person,
Yeah.
and if
You are.
there's a little bit of room left, being a catalyst for change sometimes comes with a little chaos,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And being a visionary is it's like a really incredible gift, but sometimes a little bit hard.
Yeah.
And I'd like to leave people with that it's okay to be a visionary and it's okay to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And that, my core tenet, I think, that I lead my personal and my professional life with is that you don't have to believe the same to love the same.
Mm-hmm. Truth. Love that. What is next for Jen?
Well, what's next for Jen is a little bit of a trip for the first time in a long time, and I'm very excited about it. And to have world domination with Intry and to scale it up and build it out with one of the best teams I could have ever imagined. I think one of the best in my career, to address bias and to stop people from feeling ghosted and to give companies the tools that they really need to be successful, which in turn means that their employees also have the tools that they need to be successful.
Love that. Love that. And how can people find you?
They can find me at www.intrycareers.com. They can find me, Jennifer Sethre, on LinkedIn, or they can find me on Instagram at J_Sethre on Instagram, or Intry on Instagram. I don't Facebook. Okay, I
It's
don't
okay.
Meta.
We'll put it all here. Everyone will be able to
I'm
connect
just
with you.
saying,
Um,
so reach out.
any
I'm always happy to have a conversation.
any parting thoughts on anything you'd care to share about the work that we're doing right now?
I just think people need to buckle up because it's going to be amazing and it's going to be game changing and it's innovative. And when you see what we're about to launch in the next 30 and 60 days, I think people are going to be really surprised.
Yeah.
And I think it's really going to change the dynamic in how people can coach and how people can work with their resumes as resume writers. And then the evolution after that is how we can take out the bias in various ATS software platforms, and the career accelerator for candidates and the outplacement alternative. I mean, there's a lot going on, and it's all
She didn't even touch it all. There's
I
more.
know, but
Uh,
there's so much, and
There's so much.
it's
There's so much.
but it's amazing. And I think, again, when you have the right team and the right people to build it out, it's amazing. I mean, like, we secured a couple of strategic partnerships already, and there's people that are taking this leap with us because they believe in us and they believe
Yeah.
in the vision, and that I think is such an amazing gift. And it's such a huge validation of what it is that we're building, and what it is that we built, what we're building, what we're going to future build. I just honestly, I couldn't be more excited. I mean, it's if I could like levitate, that's how I feel right. Which
Well, I'm
I
right
maybe
there
makes
with
me sound
you.
crazy, but I'm so excited. It's an amazing journey to be on, and I couldn't be any happier than to be on this journey with you.
Well, thanks. I feel the same. And for anyone who is a job seeker, knows a job seeker, please come to our website, check it out. Watch us on LinkedIn because we will be announcing further boot camps in the future. Sorry, career accelerators in the future. And
Hard to be.
we really are trying to change the way you guys can market yourselves, as well as how companies can take care of their very important resource, their people.
Yeah.
So it's so in line with my brand. The show is not going anywhere. It is all about heart and putting people first. And that is something that was really important to me as I took this leap. So, Jen, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed this episode
I
of
did.
the
I was
Hire
a little
Podcast.
nervous, but you made it so easy and you did such a great job. And what are you most excited about?
Oh, I mean, to me, I feel like we're on the precipice of something really big. And, my journey is very heart-centered. My leadership approach has always been that way. And when we can give back that humanity to the people who really need it, both job seekers and companies who have to let their folks go, not to mention what we're going to be able to do with career coaches, what we're doing with nonprofit, like there's such a big impact we can
Yeah.
make. And I feel like that impact I couldn't make by myself. And I'm really excited to be doing this with you. And I think you said it to me when we were originally talking about teaming up, and that was, you didn't want to do it alone. And I don't want to do it alone either. So I'm really thrilled to be part of the team.
Me too.
So
Well,
it's
thanks for
cool.
having me on, and
Yeah,
cheers.
it's my pleasure. Cheers. Guys, if you like this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or go and leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. Thank you for listening. Take care of each other. Go out there. Have a great day, and peace. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.